Welcome to lesson 19 in our series on learning Python for beginners. In this lesson, you'll begin to use functions and modules that are provided as part of the Python package. These modules will greatly expand the range of your programming. In this lesson, we'll briefly review what a function is, and we'll look at some of the predefined functions that come as part of the Python package. We'll also look at how we can import modules that let us access additional functions, and we'll look at some examples of how we can use these in our work. A function is a block of code that will transform values. It takes values in and changes them to make new values. All functions have this form. Several functions are predefined as part of the Python language, and here are four that you've used already: print, input, int, and the other data type conversion functions, and the type function, which tells you what data type a variable is. You can see that all functions have got something in common. The name of the function is followed by some brackets. That's how you know it's a function. The value which goes into the function is called the parameter of the function, and the parameter of a function is given inside the brackets that follow the function name. The print function has a very simple parameter. It's the expression that you want to print out. The input function has a parameter which is the prompt that is displayed to the user to tell them what to input. Other functions, such as the ones that convert data type or the data type function, can take any expression and convert it to the appropriate data type. As well as taking a parameter, every function produces a new value, and the computer must capture or use this value in some way. The print function is slightly unusual because the value that it produces will be displayed in the Python shell. The input function will take whatever the user types in and save it to a new variable. So this command here, num equals input, the value produced by the input function will be saved to a variable called num. The third example, where a variable is converted to integer form, the new integer value is saved back into the same variable. So num is the parameter and the returned value. The function will transform the variable num and save the transformed value back on top of the same variable. It will overwrite that variable. Or alternatively, as the final example on this screen shows, a function can take a variable, transform it, and save the value as a new variable. And in this example, the new variable is called new. So a function has a very particular structure. The name of the function is followed by brackets. The parameter of the function goes in the brackets, and the new returned value is saved to a new variable. We've looked at some of the functions that are provided as part of Python standard, but there are extra modules which you can add on, which give you access to new and useful functions. These functions were made by expert programmers who have generously saved their work as files which we are allowed to import into our programs. These files will be on your computer if you've installed Python. So to explore some of the functions, procedures and modules that are available as part of the Python system, we're going to look at an example. And this is a very simple one, which is quite common as an early Python exercise. A teacher decided to create a maths quiz that would display random maths questions, tell you if you've got the answer right, and I'm adding an extra feature. There's a countdown timer, so you only have 5 seconds to think of the answer to the question. So the first thing we're going to do is generate some random numbers so that we can make a question out of them. The function we're going to use is called randint, and that is part of a module called random. So the first thing we're going to do is import that module to our program, and that will give us access to all the useful functions that are part of that module. So the first line of our program, open Python now and start typing this, is the word import and then the word random. Import is a Python keyword, that's why it's shown in gold, and random is the name of the module that we're going to import. If you're curious about what other modules are available, Google Python modules and you'll find out a wealth of useful information, but that goes beyond the scope of this lesson. So we're going to use a function called randint that makes random integers. There it is, that's the name of the function. Because it comes out of the random module, I'm calling it random.randint. But basically that's the name of the function. Remember that the name of a function is followed by brackets, and inside the brackets we show the parameters. Now the parameters of the random function give us the range of numbers that we're going to pick a random number from. So we're going to get a random number that's somewhere between 1 and 100 at random. And finally, we're going to save the returned value as a new variable. And in this example, my new variable is called number. So to sum it all up, these 2 lines of code import a module called random and use a function from that module to create a random number from 1 to 100 and save it as a new variable called number. So now you've seen those 2 lines of that program. Here are some programming challenges for you to try. Add a print command to the program so that it will print out the one random number that you've just generated. Put the lines which make and display random numbers into a loop, perhaps a counter loop, so that it will print out 10 random numbers, one after the other. Change the program so that it makes a question out of 2 random numbers joined with a plus sign, and finally put that inside a loop so that your program outputs a series of 10 random questions. So why not pause the lesson now, go away and have a go at as many of those challenges as you can. If you've been paying attention to the lessons that precede this one, you should find these relatively straightforward challenges. On the next page, we'll look at some suggested answers. So here's the random quiz that I suggested on the last screen. We import the random module and then we're using a counter-controlled loop that counts up to 10. Inside the loop, we're using the randint function to generate 2 random numbers which I've stored as the variables number 1 and number 2. And then finally, we're printing out those 2 numbers concatenated with some other string values to make a question. And if we run this program, I wrote it and then I ran it, and this is what the output was. 10 completely random numbers organized as a quiz. So did you get that working? Did you have to look at my code first, or did you manage it on your own? In any case, hopefully you've got that quiz program working now. Here are 4 more programming challenges for you to try. Because your programming skills are quite well developed now, I strongly urge you to have a go at these on your own before you look at my results. So, create a variable called answer that stores the answer to the question, to the random question, by adding the 2 random numbers together. Add an input command to get input from the user's answer to the question. And then use an if structure, this would be nested inside the loop, to compare the user input to the right answer and then output a message saying they got the question right or they got the question wrong, depending on whether their input matches the right answer. You can probably see this code in your mind's eye as I'm describing it. So stop the video and go and have a go at making this program work yourself. All the skills that are mentioned here are ones that you have already developed in previous lessons. On the next screen, I'm going to show you the answer. So as you develop the code, it should look something like this. You've imported the random module. You're looping 10 times, you're making 2 random numbers, printing them out in the form of a question and working out the right answer. You're getting the user answer. Remember to convert it to an integer. If the user answer matches the right answer, print that you've got it right, otherwise print that you got it wrong. Did you manage to do that? I'm pretty sure that you did. Now we're going to extend that program by adding an additional feature. We're going to add a timer that counts down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The student has 5 seconds to think about the answer. So let's take a little digression and make a new program. We're going to make a little program that just does the countdown part of this task. That way we can make sure that our code works properly, get it just the way we want, and then we can copy that code into our developing quiz program. That's a good way to develop programs, by splitting them into their different parts and writing each part as a separate little program. Okay, so this program begins with the import command again, and this time we're importing a module called time, and we're going to use that to make our countdown work. The rest of the program is a loop that counts in reverse. It counts from 5 down to 0 in steps of -1, and each time round it prints the counter. So it'll print out 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and then say time's up. Of course, this won't take 5 seconds to do. It'll flash by really fast. So this is where I'm going to use one of the time functions. Here we are. I'm going to add this extra command, sleep. It's a function from the time module. So I write time.sleep and it makes the computer, well, go to sleep, really just pause for however many seconds, and the number of seconds is the parameter in the brackets. So by putting this function time.sleep brackets 1, I'm making the computer pause for 1 second after each countdown. So the entire countdown will take 5 seconds, which is what I want. Okay, so what I suggest you do is you write that program and get it working. And once you're confident you've got it working, either retype or copy and paste that code into your quiz program where you think is the right place. I'll show you the answer on the next screen. So here it is. I've imported 2 modules now. The random one, which I use to make the random numbers, and the time one, which I use to pause for a second. The rest of the time program, the countdown, goes inside the for loop, in between displaying the question and inputting the answer. So let's recap what we've learned so far. We've learned that functions transform values. They have parameters and returned values. We've seen how we can use predefined functions for a lot of useful things in Python. 2 of the most useful are print and input. And we've also seen how we can import modules and use new functions from those modules. And we've specifically used functions from the random and the time modules. So now it's time to apply your knowledge. First of all, make the quiz. You can simply copy the code that I've provided here, or you can close this down and go and try and write the quiz program from scratch, from memory. Then you can add some extra features. You can change the range of numbers that the random function uses. So we're picking numbers from 1 to 10 or 1 to 1,000. We can change the length of the countdown to give people a lot more or a lot less time. And you could change the type of question. So it's addition questions in the example I've shown you, but you could change that to multiplication questions if you want. And you can also amend the program so that the user themselves has control over these features. So they could choose the range of numbers, or they could choose, I want difficult questions, and then it will automatically generate questions from larger numbers with a shorter countdown time. So really, it's entirely up to you. Design the program the way you want, and this will give you a chance to apply your knowledge and really show you're developing Python skills. In the next lesson, we're going to go even a step further, and you're going to write your own procedures and functions. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye for now.